Yeah. Love that music. And welcome again to another episode of the Carlos Taco Show. We're your hostesses. We host and hostesses. We got Patty, we got Mary, and we got me. So welcome again. And what do we got for tonight, Miss Patty?
Well, we're hoping to learn about Measure X, talk about it, learn about it. Have y'all heard of it? Measure X?
Right? Yeah.
I heard about it.
I heard about it now. I pulled it up.
What
I
is
think
it?
I remember this though. I remember this. I think I voted for it.
Then
So,
that's good.
yeah.
We
Yeah.
need Measure X funds here in Antioch is what we should be talking about.
Right?
Yeah.
So for those tuning in, we're talking about Measure X. What is Measure X? Well, I'm glad you asked. Measure X, according to the ContraCosta.ca.gov, is a countrywide 20-year half-a-cent sales tax approved by Contra Costa County voters on November 3rd, 2020. The collection of the tax began April 1st, 2021. The ballot measure language stated that the intent of Measure X is to keep Contra Costa's regional hospitals open and staffed, fund community health centers, emergency response support, crucial safety net services, invest in early childhood services, protect vulnerable populations, and for other essential county services. The Board of Supervisors made allocations after hearing extensive community input and presentations. Allocations made through fiscal year 23 to 24 are summarized on the table below. And it gives a big old. I'm not reading all that. That's too much. My eyes hurt. Anyway, that's it.
So it started in 2020. Okay.
Yes.
Do we know if any of the funds have been distributed yet?
That's where we're at. Like, that's what I wanted Andrew to break down for us, like the timeline of it. And I'm looking at the fiscal year 22, 21, 22, 22, 23 revised. And it has the numbers, but that's a really good question. Like, has it been distributed? Where did it get distributed to? Because it says in there for communities also, right?
Yeah.
General. Yeah. Because when I hear Measure X, I think of how they want to. There's the African American Holistic Wellness Hub, and I've joined those meetings, and it's to ensure that like they get part of this Measure X funding to support that kind of space. And hi, Andrew, welcome.
Hey, all. I was
Andrew.
experiencing some technical difficulties.
Oh no!
As usual, apologies.
No, all good.
You're right on time, bro. We just read what Measure X is all about, according to ContraCosta.ca.gov.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So welcome, audience. Welcome. We have our hosts, and Andrew is one of our subject matter experts on where money's being spent in the city and in the county here and there, so he can break some things down for us.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Break it on down.
I hear a little bit of my echo in the background, though.
Okay, let me see.
You can mute it. We can mute while he's talking.
Okay, does that help a little bit?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, yeah, Measure X is definitely one of the new local county measures, 20-year measure, sales tax measure that is primarily focused towards health, housing, and social justice programs, I believe, is kind of a broad description. I apologize, I wasn't here when you all were reading the county
Maybe
description.
we'll have Carlos. Can you read it back one more time? I want to hear it again.
Yeah.
Appreciate
So
that. Yeah.
Measure X is a countrywide 20-year 0.5% sales tax approved by Contra Costa County voters on November 3rd, 2020. Collection of the tax began on April 1st, 2021. The ballot measure language stated that the intent of Measure X is to keep Contra Costa's regional hospitals open and staff fund community health centers, emergency response support, crucial safety net services, invest in early childhood services, protect vulnerable populations, and for other essential county services. Now, when you go down to agenda description, what I didn't read is it says consider adopting Measure X one-time funding allocation in the amount of $75 million for the Contra Costa Regional Medical Center capital project.
So why just the medical project? Does the medical project oversee everything?
So when the measure was initially written and put on the ballot, there were primary directives like for those dollars, right? And within those directives, you can expand, you can move around to a degree on some of them, right? So, for instance, when Measure X talked about housing, that gives a opportunity to look at dollars to acquire property to build housing, dollars to actually build housing, dollars to operate programs out of housing, right? When you look at the the Measure X expansion and then operating, well, the renovating dollars for that facility, the issue with these bond measures is that they give the opportunity. So there's the direction there, right? But there's not the full plan. So, like, for instance, when they said this is where we want to go with the facility, they had a long-term plan, obviously, for that facility, but they didn't have the specific plan. Does that make sense? Like, and by that I mean the construction documents, like the actual specifications of how the building will lay out. Go ahead, Mary.
So is it kind of like when the city was talking about when we fund a project, how we fund the project and then they come back to us and they go, oh, we need more. So we give them more.
Well, that's why that typically happens, because you don't have the full project penciled out and ready to go yet. So as you take time to do that, costs continue to grow, especially here in the Bay Area. So
Right.
What costs one thing to do today will be more expensive tomorrow, and then more expensive the next day and the next day, right? And
Right.
so that's one degree, but also it's the matter of you've basically said, okay, so we want to upgrade those facilities. We have an idea within that long-term plan for that facility of what we want those upgrades to look like. But we have a projected idea of what these measure dollars will be, but we don't have the dollars yet. And so now, as the county is capturing those dollars, they're dialing in on, okay, how much is really available? How much can we spend on this project? And then that'll really determine specifically what that project will look like. And the frustrating thing is that when you're doing all of those things in individual bubbles, it becomes disconnected, right? And what typically is the one thing that centers that all, or should center that all, when we look at public dollars or public spaces? In my opinion, that's community engagement, right?
Right.
And historically, through Measure X, we see community engagement as these webinars, or these, now lately we've seen these virtual town halls, or they'll go to specific pocket communities. But my frustration is that when you have a county that is made up of all these cities that are made up of all these agencies, you really have an untapped potential to access your community, and we don't see that, right?
Right.
Um for instance, we always talk about the police department. The police department has no idea what's going on at a county level, and has no idea about these projects, right? Instead of constantly talking about how we're funding, techniques or tactics, or weaponry, or those things. Why aren't we having our law enforcement, agencies, or our other support agencies, even the fire department, as that first responder access for these new things, right? I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but EMS is literally showing up and working with individuals. And historically, if you've got EMS for responding out to a call, here in the county, you might be on Medi-Cal, and being on Medi-Cal, you might have, greater, medical needs. And so you would think that a large capital project like improving that county facility out there would be something that you would want to be a part of, right? You go out there, you're a part of that facility. Why don't you help dictate what that looks like? And when people hear me say something like that, they're like, wow, that's so many steps in between. How do you get to that? Yeah.
I'm going to go back just a little bit in your conversation. So the money that we're getting, we're looking at how much money we have. Are we needing more money now, not only with inflation, but because of the programs that Gavin took away from us?
Well, not just that, but they are saying, okay, this is a 20-year bond. We're getting an idea of what the annual receivables are looking like. So we can work that capital project within that to know that we'll have that. So like 75 million is not necessarily going to be captured in 1 year, right? Or 2 years or 3 years. That could be a 10-year plan in and of itself, right?
Right.
But that county medical facility is only a portion of the directives of that bond measure dollars. So
And are they? I
Go
keep cutting you off. I'm so sorry. I got so many
I
questions.
keep talking too much. You got to cut me off. It's okay.
Um,
They do it at the council meetings. Don't worry about it.
So is the Measure X dollars, are they allocated a certain percentage for the different types of social needs? Like would healthcare be one? Would maybe a new library be one? I mean, how are they?
And you mentioned social justice, but I didn't hear social justice in their written description. But where would social justice fit into this?
Within the specific topics. So for instance, within housing, and then like those housing programs, you would target specific populations, and how they really determined how all of these different dollars would go out, past that initial bond measure that was written. Once it passed, they formed the Measure X committee. That subcommittee, actually brings recommendations to the county on specifically where those dollars go. And that's supposed to, and it largely is, built around community engagement. I did attend a few of those community engagement sessions. There was not that many that were broadcast to the community. Luckily, I was able to catch on to some because Reimagine Antioch did a lot of work and informed the community about them.
Okay. Yeah, that's the only way that I've been getting, like, oh, there's a board of supervisors, Measure X something, or there's a city council meeting, and that keeps staying in the loop on those things.
Raina does an amazing job with Reimagine Antioch.
Yes.
I'll tell you, she's the one that helps to get all that information out. But when you look at those specific dollars for the Measure X, that's where that committee really kind of honed in and said, this is where we're going to go. And then the board voted on it. and then the specific departments within the county. See, this is how it all gets segmented out too, right? Because different departments handle different things in the county, right? So, for instance, housing goes under DCD, for like construction side of it, but then program side of it, it's under H3. The hospital is under H3 as far as programs, um, and administration, but then building is back under DCD. So once again, these bubbles, right? And the county does a pretty good job, internally. They do a lot better than the city of Antioch, at working together on administering those dollars. But I see a strong, there's a lack in the community engagement, even to the point that, like, when you are on site building, you only have to notify, even for any private developer, you only have to notify a neighbor within 500 feet of you. And that sounds extreme, right? Because 1,000 feet is not that far, and you would definitely want to know if somebody was building, a 5-story building there, right? But the people within 500 feet only get the notice, and the county only does that too. They,
Question.
Good.
Earlier, I don't know if I caught your drift correctly, but funding here would go to police departments. Did I hear you say that they should fund more police departments, like from Measure X funding to go into their resources and stuff?
No, I was saying that Measure X, these different funding, these different. I was talking about the community engagement, the different outlets, and how you access the community, and that that law enforcement or first responders could be that access point for a lot of community members, right?
I'm gonna disagree. Because of the trauma and folks that cannot necessarily be an access point to the police for that kind of information, unless they rebranded themselves as community resource officers. Then I would give them that. But I feel like a lot of people, and
don't we already have community resource officers? Those are the officers that aren't sworn in, that go out and
they should swear them in.
Well, they don't.
They should get sworn in and actually,
because they don't actually have to. They don't deal with the public the same way as the other ones. They go out there and they do like put up the barricade, at the marina, or show up for the kids' school, or they're not the actual officers. They're like officer lookalikes.
Yeah, there's different levels. CSOs, the community service officers, don't have the post training. They only have standard civilian training. So it's basically like getting hired by an employer, and an employer just puts you through a training program. Post is literally a legal program, where,
so if you think of it this way, I'm going to give you a parallel real quick before you go. At the school, because I know that you go to a lot of school board meetings, there are certified and classified employees. The certified employees are the teachers and the principals and the people that have the education. The classified are the people that go and work with the kids just the same, but they don't have the same responsibilities.
Yeah,
they don't have the education. Am I getting that right, Andrew?
Exactly. And, kind of touching on what you said, Patty, I agree with you. Historically, a lot of these interactions with law enforcement is centered around trauma or fear, right? Of expected trauma. And that fear of expected trauma comes from these standards, right? That are perpetuated over and over again. But that rebranding that you're talking about is creating that agency that does offer those resources, right? I want to have a community where I'm not just looking to law enforcement to respond, to a criminal activity or prevent criminal activity. I'm looking for somebody that represents and brands this city and is a public agent and has access to those resources on different levels. I'm looking for somebody that can connect me with the unhoused resident coordinator, or somebody that knows where the nearest shelter is, or somebody that knows where the nearest hospital is, or somebody that knows where to go pay my phone bill. Right? Those are those are the kinds of people we want out in the community. And when I talk about access, you know, even in somebody's health, I grew up in the Medi-Cal system. So talking about that hospital, and I'm going to kind of drift away a little bit like I sometimes do off topic, but just really quickly, that hospital in Martinez has carried a stigma, right? And kind of a stereotype for a long time, where we know that county services are lacking, right? Um, uh, but at least they're not Sutter Delta. And so, the frustrating thing is that this measure creates an opportunity to uplift that medical facility. I'm frustrated because they looked at that core county facility and they left out West County and they left out East County. We have the old Pittsburgh Hospital, which definitely could have probably even been built out and had emergency services brought back in to support Sutter Delta. And so then we don't all joke about Sutter Delta, right? And, all of these things sound grandiose and sound great, but they're built off of the bones of those measures and those people coming together and thinking of grand ideas. And how do those ideas formulate if it's not within a committee meeting or a virtual town hall that you maybe saw a flyer for? It's the EMS responder that's sitting in the back of the bus with you on the way to the hospital saying, hey, if you're on Medi-Cal, did you happen to notice that they're working on this out there at the hospital and these are meetings that you could attend? And here's the information, right?
Right.
And
that'll never happen.
It'll never happen. But if that was to happen, that's crazy, because you're tapping specifically in to individuals that have a health need, that have that insurance. And I mean, EMS responds to tens of thousands of calls annually, right? These virtual town halls have 50 people showing up, right? So there's a disconnect. And what's frustrating is that we say, well, that'll never happen. But when you call 911, who comes out and answers? It's the fire department, right? And it's AMR, those buses, and they're all contracted through the county. So
we need more domestic violence buses. We need more mental health buses, and maybe youth activity mobile buses.
Yeah, I think that talking about health real quickly, I would say real quick that health has shifted, and you look at Antioch and Pittsburgh specifically, and I don't know if you've all noticed, but we've had within the last 8 years, 4 new dialysis centers built.
Oh, I did notice that. I noticed that popping up everywhere.
Yeah. And that speaks to a health need, right? And that's talking about preventative care, right? And that's education.
Yeah.
And that is looking at, and something that Kaiser supposedly tries to do, addressing root health concerns before they are there, right?
Preventative health. Yeah.
Preventative health. Yeah. And once again, looking at these, at Pittsburgh, right, in that facility, there is so much opportunity to tap into that and to bring the youth in, right? Because the youth are our future. And if we change the cycle of how we eat, how we regulate our bodies, and then we also tap into the level of poverty and how that plays into health and our marginalized communities, that is the root. That is, I think, the spirit of where that measure is, right? Because how can we contribute financially? We can go to the store and pay for something, and then that tax will bring what we need, right? We don't have, if somebody was to say, hey, do you guys like this idea? Show up down here and give us a couple $1,000s for it. The majority of the community can't do that, right?
Right.
But we have this measure, and we don't have these larger grand visions. What we have is just kind of the basic maintaining the status quo.
Right.
So, but anyway, I'm talking a lot. I want to hear you guys talk a little bit too. So,
Question. I feel like these meetings where they discuss, oh, this much here, we would like it. At what point is a decision made and saying, is it kind of just an ongoing cycle of money that's just rolling, and until an organization or an entity is like, hey, we need that, and then
so
they get funds? Or
it's kind of a mix. It depends on what the county is doing. So if the county is making dollars available through the measure, then the committee will make a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors on how much money should be made available based off of projections, and the community engagement they did to determine where those dollars should go. Then the Board of Supervisors will vote on that amount, and they'll make that amount available. So just kind of throwing out rough numbers, if they were to say 20 million was to go for this program, 30 million for this program, 20 million for this program, then those individual departments would put out traditional RFP, or either RFPs or NOFAs, actually is what they are.
Yeah,
Notice
that's
of
kind of
funding
where I'm going
availability.
with the percentages. Like,
what does NOFA stand for?
Notice of funding availability.
Okay.
And so they'll put that out, and you'll have a period of time where applicants, nonprofits, and also for-profit entities, in some cases, sometimes can apply. That application period will close, and then those applications will be scored. And then based off of those scores, they'll be ranked. And because if you have, let's say 20 million for one program, traditionally you'll probably get 2 to 3 times that. It's pretty overprescribed.
this
Yeah,
is my
Mary.
new favorite question that I ask for everything, just so you know. My ADHD is really kicking in, and I'm really into like metrics and how they're measuring things. How do they determine what scores? How is there? Was that written in the measure? Like, these certain things need to be hit, or I mean, who determines that? Is it a committee? Is it a committee of civilians? Is it a mixed committee, civilians and government? Is it
So,
a accounting room that's totally detached from reality? I mean, how does that work?
so the specific department. So traditionally, the county themselves, they'll write the applications themselves. A lot of times, smaller agencies like Antioch will hire a consultant they'll put out an RFP for a consultant.
So when you say the county will write it themselves, you're talking about the voted representatives of Contra Costa County? No,
I'm talking about the individuals that work for the county within the
So
department, the staff, right?
Okay.
We'll put together the application, and what they traditionally do is they'll put together the application based off of certain criteria, and what they usually do is they follow, mostly everyone kind of follows, the state follows the federal guidelines, the county follows the state guidelines, the city follows the county guidelines. So a lot of these guidelines are traditionally standardized, and the reason they do that is because if you're applying, like let's say you're applying, and I'll actually give you an actual example. We have at our June 5th meeting here, coming up for CDBG in Antioch, 2 nonprofits that are applying for local housing successor and CDBG dollars.
What's CDBG?
Community Development Block Grant Funding.
Cool.
Yep. So CDBG dollars, really quickly, are dollars that come down from the federal government. So the federal government has creates there are what are called continuums of cares, right? And those continuum of cares follow federal HUD standards, and then they traditionally follow like kind of the county kind of boundaries. So Contra Costa County monitors our COC. They manage our COC. And
And when
so
you're talking COC, are you talking about Carlos's COC, like a community outreach church?
no, COC stands for a continuum of care.
Okay.
And the continuum of cares are specific districts where federal dollars come down, and that continuum of care administers those dollars out. So the
Okay.
COC will work with Contra Costa because once again, these dollars you want to try to put them all together, right?
Right.
To provide the community the largest opportunity, and to streamline, right? And so CDBG, if you are what's called an entitled community, here in Antioch, we're entitled. And so that's a community that has over 50,000 residents
Okay.
and is within an urban boundary. That entitled community, and it also can be counties, cities or counties, receive their own CDBG at a federal level. And then at a state level, we have what's called PLHA. And those are permanent local housing authority dollars.
Okay.
And so those come down to, once again, entitled communities. So the city of Antioch has these dollars that are made available every couple of years. CDBG funds in 2-year funding cycles, and PLHA funds in 5-year funding cycles. And what they do is they will traditionally make those, they'll work, the government has made it so that you can partner with your local entities, to kind of pack those dollars together and just do one large application. And so then these different entities can apply for them, but you still have to be within it. So, for instance, if you're applying for the CDBG dollars at the county level, like with the city of Antioch, then you have to be doing work in the city of Antioch for the PLHA dollars, right? I'm sorry,
Right.
PLHA, not CDBG, for the
Okay.
PLHA. But if you're applying for county PLHA dollars, then you cannot use those PLHA dollars within Antioch or Pittsburgh or Walnut Creek. It has to be within the urban county as a whole because that's their PLHA.
So
Does that
the
make sense?
places where the sheriff would be the law enforcement.
Exactly.
Okay.
So,
So unincorporated.
exactly. So getting back to
Got it.
those applications, what they do is they will create scores within, and so those scores will be broken down into categories. So like one category will be site control, like for talking
Okay.
about housing specifically. Do you own the property? Do you have a negotiated contract or an LOI? And that would determine, you would score on that, right? Somebody who owns a property would score higher than somebody that is going to use those dollars they're applying for to buy a property, right? But then there are other brackets where it would be like programs. Who is the intended community you're targeting? Is it chronic homeless? Is it seniors, veterans? The location of where you're building. Is it close to a grocery store? Is it close to a pharmacy, to major transit? The entities you're working with, what is their experience and their background? How long is your budget put together for? How long can you show operational sustainability? They put all of that together, and then they're scored up against each other. Then then staff will make a recommendation to the board of supervisors, and the board of supervisors will then approve. Traditionally, what they do is they pretty much just approve staff recommendations. Nobody really goes beyond that and dives into it themselves. And it'll then from there, the ones that didn't receive funding have an opportunity to apply again the next year. I believe they're going to try to make it where if you apply again in the future, you applied in the past and you weren't awarded, you kind of have an opportunity to move up in line.
Right.
So that it provides equity, and of course there's reporting. You have to spend the dollars within a certain amount of time, whether it's for programs. So some of the dollars, I think, that are like around health programs within the community, you have to spend those dollars within like 2 years of receiving them, and you have to report on them. So that's kind of the process,
Or you lose them.
or you lose them. And the reason
Okay.
why they want that done is because they don't want people holding on to dollars, right? They want those dollars to go out into the community and to be used, and to get that to recapture that value back as quick as possible. And then also, they more importantly want the dollars spent because they want you reporting. They
Are
want to
those
make sure.
dollars that are lost, are they reallocated into the program for somebody else who might have had a high score?
When you say lost, you mean if somebody doesn't end up
So
using those dollars and they're
say
recaptured?
they were given $500,000, and during that 2 year period, they were able to spend 475 of it. There's $25,000 that they can no longer touch because the 2 years are expired. Do they get an extension, or does that money go back into the pot, or is it poof back into
Yeah,
the
I mean,
county?
in that specific instance, I'll tell you that the county wouldn't look to recapture that. They would work with them on that program. I mean, if you're administering dollars, they would work with you and extend out. I mean, sometimes there is, there's you. So literally by law, you have to spend these dollars, but they'll work with you on making sure the dollars are spent in one way or another, even if that
Okay.
means they have to find dollars somewhere else and they recapture them. They work with you. Um,
Okay.
the big thing is the reporting. They want to see how they want to have measured outcomes
Yep.
because these are revolving programs. So they want to adapt the program to meet the community's needs.
Okay. I wonder, like, the Bay Area community resources, the funding that they get, would that be Measure X dollars, or is that separate?
Well, the which funding?
It's called the Bay Area Community Resources, and, like, for instance, they do after school programs for kids, and when I
Possibly,
okay,
possibly. Measure X is also a part of Measure X was specifically directed towards building youth center. So they also created dollars that were going to go towards youth services. Um, so there are opportunities within Measure X, um, to apply to those programs, or to participate in those programs for dollars. But traditionally, a lot of these these either tutoring or after school programs try to, if they're either getting private grant funding, or if it's public, you're trying to tap into like CDBG. The city of Antioch, at the last council meeting, they just approved that grant for $307,000 that they received. They approved $307,000 in funding to like R&R, transitional housing, bridge builders, some of these other organizations. So through those grants, but I always tell local organizations, if you're providing a service that is standardized in our community, and what I mean by that is, if every year you're providing the same service, you're not seeing a change, you're seeing the need there every year, and you don't have sustainable, committed funding, engage your local CDBG and to a degree PLHA funding opportunities, wherever you are. So if you're in Antioch, if you're an entitled community in Antioch, go to Antioch. If you're in the county, go to the county. Walnut Creek, go to Walnut Creek. Pittsburgh, go to Pittsburgh, because that is an opportunity to tap into some of these dollars. And a lot of, and this is not against a lot of the CDBG organizations, because they do great work, but we see a lot of them receiving ongoing funding, and we don't sometimes see proper reporting. We're not seeing the data coming back, right? And so some of these older organizations, and I really don't want to speak to something that I'm not fully informed on, but without the data, right, we can't say that these are the outcomes. And so for a lot of these other organizations that see that need but don't have dollars, tap into those dollars, because they're out there, and you have a right to them just as much as everyone else.
Okay, I have
Go
a
ahead.
crazy question. I mean, it's way out there. You know how they keep talking about wanting our city to become a charter city?
Yes.
Oh
That
yeah.
take away our entitlement to those dollars?
No, not at all.
So it's not going to make us, it wouldn't make us like under the county anymore. It would make us, I guess I don't understand, because I feel
So
I
as the
thought the chowder or the chowder. Listen to me. Let's have some soup. Um, the charter. I thought the charter basically what it was doing is it was taking us out of being governed like a regular city would, like
no,
with
so
overseer.
No, so the charter just changes, the charter city just changes your municipal structure. It changes you from a general law city to having your own charter laws. And what that means is that you're creating your own path, and then you can also have a strong mayor, right, that actually enforces those specific charter laws, right? Whereas now you have a city manager that just enforces the general law kind of provisions that the state has created, kind of a blanket template for cities.
Yeah.
Changing that doesn't change how you're funded, because either way, you're still a city that is an incorporated city that is protected under the state and the federal constitution.
Okay. Yeah, that
Um,
was like a worry about me, because I know I'm hearing everybody charter city, charter city, charter city, and I'm thinking, if we do that, are we going to lose even more opportunities than we've
no,
already?
the only thing that could change us at this point in funding would be if we unincorporated, um, obviously, which I don't see us doing that, going back to being under the county, right?
Oh,
Um,
you never know. We do have some sundowners here that run old Antioch Pass.
yeah, you never know. That could be
You
that could
never
be true.
know.
And then another way, if we got over 250,000 residents, that would change us to like a kind of we would be more classified as like a metropolitan community.
Oh,
Um, but that would mean more than doubling our which we do not have room for in our city. If we did that, we would definitely be living in skyscrapers.
okay.
Um, and we don't need that kind of density. Yeah. So, no, the charter law city, I think, is, and this is kind of straying off a little bit, but my own thoughts on that is, it's definitely a strength for cities, like Oakland
Right.
or Los Angeles, right? San Jose, um, because they have that kind of structure and that need. My concern for the city of Antioch is that, um,
We just big
to
enough.
make that transition, who would make that transition? How that's kind of like saying, hey, we're going to swap out, we have this boat and we want to, or this ship, right? And we're going to go into this ship because it's a nicer, newer ship, and it's bigger and it's got better opportunities, right?
Right,
But
but we can't
if you've
afford
only
it.
got 60% staff for your ship and you go hop onto that ship and now you're at 40% capacity, are you really doing a service to your community? um when do we eventually grow back? Yeah, sure, maybe the city will bounce back in 20 years, but in the meantime we're losing. So
Right.
yeah.
So okay, but in order
Sorry, Patty, I didn't mean to stray off there a little
no,
bit.
it's all good because I mean charter city versus what we are now. That's a topic that we want to cover also.
Yeah, I was just wondering if they, because we're in like this really complex cog and all these wheels are moving, and I'm always because we never talk to each other. This hand doesn't know about this hand. So if we do this here, does this leave out here? I mean, that's where my worry is.
Yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot going on. There's definitely
My
a lot.
worry is also like where funding goes to pay who to do what. And someone sent me a liaison report for the work done, getting paid 10,000 for being this for the school district. And the report of this person is a one table slide with
Wow.
like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 bullets. And that's the end of year report. There's no data, there's no outcomes, there's no just like I hosted 4 parent group meetings.
Yeah, see, and that's like what I was saying with the what's the metrics? Like that metric to me tells me nothing.
I completed 42 home visits. Like, what were those?
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you, the person that historically has overseen our CDBG funding here in Antioch is none other than Terry House.
I've never heard that name before.
Yeah. Well, she gets paid by the city of Antioch $8,000 a month.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, Terry House Consulting. So she also gets paid by the county that same amount. So she's raking it in, plus whoever else she's charging. So
interesting.
Terry House is, an incredible person, does all this work for the city and constantly has city council members commending the work she does. And she oversees these programs, right? We talk about equity, right? And we talk about fairness, right? And I was inspired, back in 2019 by everything that was going on to move, past just going out and providing food and resources to the unhoused to actually try to step into a developer role and to onboard with some local developers and to try to tap into state funding resources and try to bring some solutions to the city, right? And so I went to the person who was in charge of applying for those grants, none other than Terry House. And I called her up and I said, hey, I have these ideas and the community seems to love it and be receptive. And I went and, I started working with this company and we're legit and we have the experience and we would like to sit down at the table and talk to you about what that looks like. And she said to me, Andrew, you're really getting in the middle of things that you don't know anything about and you're making it very difficult for a lot of people.
Oh, hell no. That's code for leave things as they are. Don't ruin, don't touch our status quo.
Yeah. Do you remember when the city of Antioch, the city council gave direction to apply for Home Key?
Yes.
And they said, we're going to create a list of sites that you can use for Home Key. And we're going to put up $3 million towards it. Right. And we'll support the application. Before that all happened, before the council members called for that to happen, I went to Terry House and I said, hey, I heard about Home Key and I heard that cities could apply for this and we really need this. And I know some property owners that would support this and would be willing to work with you. And she said, no, Home Key is too big for Antioch. That's not something we could do. And so I went to the assistant city manager at the time, Roseanne Bayan Moore, and I said, I don't mean to be rude, but there's this person who's not even working for the city. She's a consultant getting paid $8,000 a month. And she says that we can't do this, but I think we really could. And I've talked to some people and I've even talked to a couple of council members and they said they would be open to it. And she said,
well, didn't like Petaluma, which is smaller than us, get it?
Yeah. They all got, Roner Park, the people who came in, who Dignity Moves, that came and presented on what that could look like, Home Key, they've built Home Key sites in 8 different communities by now. They built over 1,000 beds by now. Since they came and presented in Antioch, that's what they've done. They're working for the whole county of Ventura. But I went to Assistant City Manager Roseanne Bayan Moore at that press conference down there at the Amtrak when the unhoused resident was hit by the train. And I said to her, hey, the motel down there in Pittsburgh is just not cutting it. And I don't think that the Executive Inn is going to be the solution, by itself. I think we need more. I don't think that, we have over 300 people on the streets. What about Home Key? And she said, you really need to leave this alone. It's not for the city of Antioch.
Oh, hell nah.
And, so that's how the council, so we worked for years, and then the council gave direction, and city staff couldn't work with them. And I feel like they didn't want to work with them based off of what they said to me. And what ended up happening is we didn't get Home Key. But meanwhile, all these other cities are getting these opportunities. Home Key put out $3.5 billion.
It makes me so sad.
And we got nothing. We didn't get a single dollar.
I remember Tamisha brought it up too. She threw shade like at the responsibility of whoever that it didn't happen. Like she acknowledged that, if I remember correctly.
I had I even went and I got the mayor and council member Barbanica, because they were at the time on the Transitional Housing Ad Hoc Committee, and that's who I was told I had to work with. I was told if you want to get a meeting with any council members on this officially with the city, has to be them because they're the vessel for unhoused services. I said, I want Tamisha on that because Tamisha is the one supporting me. They said, you can't have her in that meeting. It has to be Barbanica and the mayor. I said, okay. So we took a meeting with the city manager with the city of Antioch and with
Just out of curiosity, was it Ron?
No, at the time it was Con Johnson.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, with Con Johnson and with the county H3 director at the time, Christy Saxon. She still is actually, and a couple of her aides. And the county said, Andrew's right. If you want to pursue Home Key, now's the time, and we're willing to work with you guys. And if you want to get something going, let's get it going. And the mayor just completely shut it down in the meeting and just completely killed it. And I believe in transparency, so I tell people, if you're going to make a call to me, you best believe that the community is going to hear about that call. And I got a call from council member Barbanica after that, about 30 minutes after that meeting, saying the mayor just called me and he said to me, don't worry, Home Key's done. Home Key's not coming to Antioch.
Wait, who said don't worry? It's not
the mayor of Antioch. Lamar Thorpe. Yeah, Lamar Thorpe told that to council member Barbanica, and this was way back in 2020. So as the mayor, I don't
know if I believe anything Barbanica says, but
well, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
How come when it came to that vote for Home Key up there, the mayor pulled his vote and wouldn't vote on it when Tamisha wouldn't vote on his item? He pulled his vote, and that's what killed it. He said, I don't want to vote on this right now. Even staff said it.
That's why I get so mad at him. That's why I had issues with him.
Because it was petty.
He doesn't keep his personal stuff out of the council room.
You guys got to understand, I have people that call me all the time and tell me, I just got off of a call with the mayor and said that he will not work with anybody. He will not work with anybody if they have talked to me. He literally told the owner, he could tell you whatever he wants. He told the owner of 501 Auto Center that he will not work with them over there because Andrew Becker is involved in that. That's pretty sad.
That's defamation.
That's pretty sad because it doesn't matter to me. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. It's about the community. It's about the fact that what does it take for a property owner to come in to say, hey.
I know, but how petty can you be to take away from the community because you don't like one person?
That's what it comes down to. And I've literally said, hey, when I actually say to people, I don't have any financial stake in that 501 Auto Center project, I'm actually lying. I actually do have a financial stake in that Auto Center project because to date, I've been charged $10,000 in putting together plans in actual architectural plans with a firm out of Alameda in what that shelter housing would look like on that site with the property owner. And I'm footing that bill. It's going to Andrew Becker. And it frustrates me because What does it take for me to put together $10,000? But the city of Antioch, in a consent calendar, approved $6 million for the next
Could
5
they
years
make
to
this
TerraCare.
right? Could this be made right? Like if you have all the approved plans and everything's there, is there any way that they can like reconcile and be like, hey, you know what, Andrew, like, we want to take a look. Like how much would that take?
Do you know what it would take?
Tell
Those
me.
5 council members down there
Uh-huh.
going down there and looking at that property with their hearts. That's all it would take. That's all it would take. And the crazy part is that it's 3 blocks away from the chambers. Like, I've asked the community to come together. I've got a pastor that put his property on the market 7 months ago. He listed it for sale, not even knowing where he was going to go, because I told him that the city created an opportunity to build low-income housing there. And he said, the community needs this so bad and nobody else is willing to give up property for it. I'll do it. But I can't give it away. If he gave it away, where would his church go? He has to sell it so that his church can buy another church to do the good work that they're doing.
Yes.
Right.
He literally said to me, and then the city says, oh, well, I hope he's not concerned about that $3.7 million price, because I hope he knows that, cities can only buy it at fair market value. You know what the pastor said about that?
They'll sell it at fair market value.
You know what he did? He went and he hired the same appraiser that appraises the city of Antioch's properties. And he said, whatever that property appraises for, I'll sell it. If it's under 3.7, it is what it is.
Right.
I'm not in this for no one but my church. And if it's over that, then the city should pay, because that's what fair market value is, and this church should move where they need to move. The city can afford to pay for it. Like, if we're not willing to invest in our community, what are we willing to do?
Mm-hmm. Mary, what's your thought?
I was stretching my fingers. I'm really sorry.
And the crazy thing is, you guys, is that when did we receive that ARPA funding? Over now 3 years ago. We have had money sitting 2 to 3 years, I believe, sitting in a bank account, millions of dollars just sitting there. And you got an organization like Pallet Shelters who said, for $500,000, we can come put 40 emergency shelters in a parking lot, and we can have it ready to go in 4 months. And they did it in Sacramento, in San Jose, in Oakland, in Roner Park, Los Angeles, Ventura, Ojai, Seattle. They're in 26 states.
But how dare they allow this housing? Because then you have people from all over the place coming in, and it's all about, I think, looks and property values and perception and real estate. Because like one of the biggest investors in Antioch and abroad, like they have a little winery and stuff. I remember he was joking about blasting music to disturb the houseless on someone's property or something. And I remember we had a little back and forth, and he referred to me as a thug, an activist thug. So that to me showed his like supremacist views ish. So I could see the big fight of folks that want their property values to be whatever at the cost of not allowing these resources to flourish our communities. Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't think anybody's wrong, Patty. I think that there's truth in what everyone says, and I think that there's what that all comes from, here in our community, right? When something goes unresolved traditionally in anybody's life, where does that lead, right? For most people, unresolved issues lead towards resentment or anger, right? They drive towards places of negativity. Yeah, Mary.
So let me ask this. Are the people that don't want us to create opportunities for people that already live here to have roots and live here with their families for generations and continue to build our community and support our community? And they would prefer to sell a house to somebody who is going to use that as an investment or use that as a step-up house to move to a different city and not live here for more than a couple years. They're going to put a crappy kitchen in. They're going to cause all sorts of problems. They're going to sell their house because it looks pretty, and then they're going to move on and get away from our problems. Is that what they're doing? Is that what they think the opportunity of Antioch is, instead of an opportunity to raise a family, have generational people living in the city? I mean, because that's basically what I see them doing. I see them putting something, instead of putting the first step out there. I feel like they're trying to start at the middle step so that people move out. And if the middle step to buy and then move out, because that house sells, come into our community, if it's selling like that, why are they doing that? They're making the homeless people and the low income people look worse. They're trying to get rid of them. I feel like they're just trying to do whatever they can to just make them unseen.
Right. With all their sweeps, with no resources.
Sweeps, not wanting low income housing, not wanting pallet housing, not wanting to help the people, not wanting to do what Sacramento and Ventura and Oakland does. Because how dare we create roots here? How dare we have an infrastructure where people live here year after year after year and invest in their own communities?
Yeah. So, but the issue is, Mary, is, the issue is that everyone, right, has these different ideas or these different views or these different directions they want to go or what they think opportunity is. Commercialized housing is a whole nother topic, right? And we've had those conversations. But, the issue is that here in Antioch, all these different things come from 5 individuals.
I know,
and they're the ones that have done that. They can't come together and do anything. Right.
No.
And that's the frustration, because you break down those stereotypes, those stigmas. So that's where we got to drive. We got to go to them and just say, hey, why haven't any of you even gone and seen a pallet shelter? Why haven't you even gone to a community?
Right.
And we don't have people asking those questions. So those are the questions we got to start with.
Yep. And I didn't mean to start a big debate at the end here, because I hear
you're right. You're right. Yeah. If I didn't have arthritis, Mary, I'd be snapping right there with you, to be honest with you. Let me tell you.
Yeah. I was just a little bit angry there thinking about that. Because that's what they're doing, is they're selling homes to people like me that come in at a medium income. Now I can choose to stay here, or I can use this as an investment to go on to something else.
What's sad is that, not to cut you off, Mary, but to your point, is that they're not even just doing that anymore. They've completely tapped that market. Now in California and across the country, they're doing the build to rent communities.
Oh no, I know about that. You've seen me get mad about that before.
They're building the homes to rent.
Go there. That's next week's show, right? That's where you watch Mary turn into a fool.
I love it.
Yeah, sorry.
So,
Wholesome, informational outlooks on Measure X and funding, and we need to talk about this because I'm still learning, and so thank you all.
Yeah, I love talking to Andrew. He's one of my favorite persons. He's number 12, y'all know. He's number 12.
Yeah, thank you,
I appreciate you all. Hey, and can we get a plug here at the end too for Friday's event? Because I know that you're going to be out there, Carlos.
Jose?
So can you give the details?
Oh,
Jose Cordon. We got the. Go ahead, Miss Patty.
we have the poetry nights, open mic night through Grassroots Poetry. Jose Cordon, they're going to do their monthly and last Friday of the month open mic. This time is different because there will be vendors. We have a chef in the house.
The vendors?
Yay.
We have vendors. I'm just gonna be there for a little bit. I might make some small posters, small augmented reality pieces. You know, nothing crazy, but most importantly, to be present and
Yes.
just get to know each other in our community and kick it.
And what
Oh,
time is that
just
at?
one last thing. Did you guys all see Jose's post that he's 100% working as a poet now?
Yes,
That's
amazing.
inspiring.
Nice.
the Lynn House Gallery, downtown Antioch, Lynn House Gallery. That's where we'll be tomorrow at what time?
I think it's 5
5:30.
o'clock, right?
5 to
5
7.
5:30 to
Yeah,
7.
I'll be
It's gonna
making
real tight for
tacos.
me.
I'll be making tacos and out there selling them. And yeah, come on down and support. And you got those. You can pay cash, of course, or we got the QR code thingies. Did you print them out yet?
Donate.
The Venmo and Cash App.
Mhm.
Yeah, we'll have all that too. So
Thank you, Andrew, for that.
Awesome.
come on out.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. And,
Yes, I'm excited to come out and support. Yes, so see y'all out there. I appreciate y'all having me on tonight too, having us all
Yeah.
on.
we appreciate you being on here.
Most definitely.
All of you, every
Thank
week.
you.
Every week. Miss Patty, Mary, Nicole, the whole lot of you guys. Andrew,
Yeah.
thank you guys, man. Wouldn't
course.
be a show without all of you guys. So with that, I want to say thank you all for tuning in. If you haven't already, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe. Tell a friend.
Share.
And tune in. Yeah, share. That's what I say. all
Sharing
the
is caring.
right? It help us get more subscribers so we can get monetized, and then with that money, we can help
If
out
we
the
ever make
community. We're all a bunch of community activists, so
Steph,
it's
Patty,
like,
you're gonna get there.
it's gonna go back to helping the community anyway. So right, I think that's something we can all agree on. But
Yeah. Community conversations.
right. But anyway, tune in again every Thursday, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And with that, I'd like to say thank you all for tuning in. Good night and God bless. And
Bless you.
we're out of here.
See you tomorrow.
Well.